We are live on 15 out of 15 channels. This number is reflecting exactly how many people are currently watching this show. Watching crypto recover. Dismisses condones. What? That was weird. That was weird that came up, right? Why would that come up on the title? I don't know. I don't know. I don't understand. There is the market, and you can see this is Bitcoin right here. This one's Bitcoin. You can see a slight uptick here. This is when I purchased yesterday. So we're looking pretty darn good as far as recovering. It's a nice steady move back upwards. So hopefully that's what is going to happen. We'll just have to wait and see, I guess. But I got my eye on it because I invested some in it yesterday, and I'd like to see a return, as quick as possible, of course. I had to pay tens of thousands of dollars today in taxes, all that. That might have been the issue. I may have been off the internet there for a second. I don't know. There's only 3 viewers, so I don't know if you guys can hear and see me okay. If I got cut off there, I really don't know. Where's my mouse at? Huh, I lost my mouse. That's not good. There it is. For some reason, the mouse has stopped working. I don't know why. Is this the mouse? Yes. There it is. Hey, Mark Andrew, Roger, Mark, and Josh. What's up, guys? Those are my 3 viewers this morning. Interesting, huh? I know notifications did go out. Carol, hello, Carol. That's 4 people watching. So I know they're lying about the numbers because there's definitely at least 4 of you watching, and they are misrepresenting that for me. So, okay. You can hear me. Everything okay is on this end. Thank you, Mark Andrew Barlow. I appreciate that. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Okay. So maybe people just don't want to watch the crypto market recover. Maybe they just saw the title and they're like, I don't want to watch today when he's talking about crypto. Okay, well then let's do this. Let's talk about cannabis and get high. All right, we'll do that instead. So for all of you who showed up that have any questions or anything, you ask me whatever you want, but we'll go ahead and we'll just we'll smoke some cannabis and we'll talk about cannabis since people don't seem to want to come talk about crypto. And they can miss out on the cannabis discussion. How's that? All right. I love to punish my non-attending audience members. So let's start by smoking some. Now, I've been smoking saltwater OG for the longest time. I think it's time to switch it up. Let's grab our little box of goodies back here and just see what our eyes fall upon. Oh, we got some purple flat top. Maybe a little purple flat top. Beautiful. Andrew, hey. Hey, Andrew, hey. You've never heard that one before. Hey, Andrew, hey. What's up, buddy? Beautiful morning. Let's get high, Joel Froggy. Hey, what's up? Australia in the house. We got Australia, mate, in the house. Nay is the canna cryptic. Josh G. I am the canna critic. Andrew Hay. Nope. You've never heard of Hey Andrew Hay before? Wow, man, your friends are really dumb, aren't they? They missed that one? Well, I'm bringing it to you, man. I'm bringing it back. Hey Andrew Hay. I'm totally bringing back Hey Andrew Hay. Yeah, I've been chilling. Okay, we've all been chilling, so let's chill together. Let's smoke a little smoking stuff here. We're going to turn this light up. There we go on my face. Make my face a little prettier. I hope you guys are doing great this morning. You've got some stupid friends. Bro, I love how we came to that conclusion. I love how we came to that conclusion. Do you make hemp oil? No, I don't make anything. I don't manufacture anything. I don't even know what hemp oil is, really. You know, I don't even understand why anybody would mess with that when you've got perfectly good cannabis oil that you can make, you know. It seems to work so well. Why screw around with hemp? You know? Megsy, I am fine. Thank you for asking. No, it's nice out. It's beautiful outside. Took the dog for a walk. And you know, checked out the situation over here, which is beautiful. It's beautiful, man. Lost it in the gutter. Can you fetch it for me? Andrew, hey. Let's smoke a little cannabis. That might help bring some of your brain cells back from any alcohol poisoning they might be suffering from. How's that Roge doing? He's doing good. You know, it's a slow process of recovery on that leg, but every day he seems a little better, man. He jumped up on the bed yesterday, which is good. He's walking around. He's putting weight on it. Okay, cheers. Let's bring back some brain cells with some cannabis use. Don, what's up, buddy? That was a purple flat top, man. That hit me right in the brain skull. That was good. That was really good. Just kind of slowed everything down, put everything into perspective. Air conditioning just came on in here. It's nice. Let me take my shoes off. I've got my I should call them sandals. They're not flip-flops. They have toe protection on the front, you know. But they're kind of like flip-flops, but I think you just call them sandals. I like them because they protect my toes. If I had been wearing them the other day, I wouldn't have hurt the bottom of my foot. Yeah, I should have been wearing them in there. But my foot is healing quickly. So that's cool. I showed you guys that cut that I got in my foot the other day. Rare for me to do that, but it happened. I was watching a thing, and I would love to continue watching it. I got bit by a mosquito last night. Megsy says, so Elon Musk wants to buy out Twitter. Yeah, we've already talked about that. American input on my Australian. Yeah, I'm just gonna block you, dude. I'm just gonna block you from my live stream. Bye. You don't know the rules. I'm not interested in what you have to say. If you can't play ball with me, bro, I'm not interested. Just 2 violations in one sentence. It's too many. I don't even have to discuss it with my audience. I've got nothing to say to you. So I was watching this video on YouTube. You got some cannabis of my man, off my man. It's called Gusher. Yeah, you told me about that. The next time I was with a bong in my bed with dirty bong water all over me. Wow. Huh. That's kind of weird. You went to sleep with your bong in your bed with you. That's really weird. So I watched this video. I thought it would be good to watch it with you guys. I wanted to watch the rest of it. I was going to just watch it from the beginning again and let you guys check it all out. But I noticed a massive drop in my viewership. And there's not even a lot of people watching today. So, to dump his stock. If they don't accept the deal from Musk, he plans to crash the market, dump his stock in it. I don't know. I don't know what his plans are, Artie. Maybe you're right. Maybe he said that. I don't know. You know, it's like my mom said, who cares? It's my mom's attitude about almost everything now. Who cares? I mean, she doesn't even seem that worried about what's going on here in Florida with the abortion law. Ron DeSantis, 15-week. If you haven't had an abortion after 15 weeks, you can't get one. You know? No, with no exceptions for incest or rape. Nice law, huh? Nice law. What film was it? Everyone is late. Dump his Twitter stock. Lol. Yeah, I knew what you meant. Everyone's late. I don't know, man, but it's not very, it just doesn't, I mean, I appreciate the 11 of you. I do. I love you 11 people more than anyone else right now. I do. You guys are my bread and butter, and I appreciate you guys. But everyone that's choosing to not click on the show right now is freaking driving me crazy. You know, they know I'm live. They know I'm live. They can go check. They can check their notifications. They know they've seen the notification. They come to the show. I've got something really good that, you know, everybody should know about. I think it's important. Like my mom says, who cares? And then I'm like, yeah, who cares? But then also I'm like, well, but I'd rather just not be lied to, and I'd rather get it from an expert. So I found this video this morning from an expert that was explaining things in perfectly easily understood terms that anybody could latch onto. You know, This guy is a really good communicator. And he's professor emeritus of Russian relations at the University of New York. Whatever the fuck it is. New York State. I don't know what it's called. He's been studying this stuff for over 40 years. And he's got a real good sense of what's going on over there right now and why it's transpired. And it's worth listening to because there's just so much. Literally, Google is threatening you if you disagree with the narrative on what's going over. You know, if you're watching podcasters that are disagreeing with this narrative, they're getting punished for telling you this. They can't punish me because I don't get monetized anyway. So there's nothing for me to get hurt on. So I figured I would let you hear it from an expert instead of from my fat mouth, because most of you, as this shows me, with every single person that leaves, you guys have nothing to say. You just leave. So weird, man. Very non-supportive. Jeff Lund is here. Hey, Jeff. Big Merc says, got noted. Good. You got a notification? Good. I guess some people just don't want to know the truth. But what I was saying before is I've got a legitimate source. You guys can decide if you think that this gentleman is a legitimate source of information. And then you can listen to what he has to say and you can decide for yourselves. But I got to tell you, the lack of support, the lack of interest, look, somebody else. Not even going to tell me why, you're just going to leave. Wow. Well, let me do this. Who are the 8 people that are still here? Let me know if you're still here. Who are my 8 people? Wow. Nick is here. Okay. Who's my other 7? Andrew Hay is still here. Thank you, Andrew Hay. Who's my other 6 people? Coco Mad. You did ban someone for asking to look at their... Yeah, and I'm going to ban you too. You know, if you don't understand, if you don't understand that we don't refer to it in that way, I'm not going to sit here and explain it to you. We don't call it weed. Okay? Period. And if you don't know that, then you don't support this show, and I couldn't give a shit about you. You're just a troll that passes through, you know, like a little piece of dirt in the water that just floats by. You won't be missed. Trust me. Whore Dog is here. Megsy is here. Big Merc is here. Okay, well, now we've got 13 instead of 8. That's good. Okay, good. Well, I think you guys are going to find this important. And if you support this show, go ahead and share it on social media. And I'm going to pull up this video for you. All right. Woodchuck Montrose is here, everybody. This is Stephen F. Cohen. Okay. He's the professor emeritus of Russian studies and politics at New York University. And, oh, what's that one called? Prinketone? Prinketone? What is Prinketone? Princeton. Oh, he's the professor emeritus of Russian studies at Princeton University. He's also contributing editor for The Nation. I don't know. The guy kind of sounds legit to me. So I'm thinking you guys might be interested in hearing what this gentleman has to say instead of all these mainstream morons that people have been listening to. And Google that's trying to suppress the actual news, you know. Now, like I said, I was watching this before already. So I'm 21 minutes in.
One hopes Obama picked up his cell phone or whatever they let him use.
I'm going to go back.
Kind of sappy, prescriptive hope.
To 19 minutes in.
Until Paris happened, I wasn't sure there was any hope at all. there's still a chance to achieve this lost partnership with Russia, at least in three realms. First of all, Ukraine. You all know what the Minsk Accords are. They were drafted by Merkel and by Hollande. They were signed by Poroshenko, the president of Ukraine, and by Putin. And they call for a negotiated end to the civil war in Ukraine. They recognize that it is primarily a civil war, not primarily, though secondarily, Russian aggression. But the civil war has to be ended, and it's steps. Here's what you got to do. And I don't care what the American media tells you, it's Kiev that has refused to follow through on its obligations. But this is a possibility. To end that civil war or mute it down would be exceedingly
Hey, Kat, what's up?
security building today. Then there's Syria. I thought that until Paris, there was almost no chance of an American coalition with Russia and Syria. Partly to do, I think, with, and I'm not big on psychological analysis, but with Obama's mind fix about them. He resents it in ways that are not helpful. But since Paris, with Hollande announcing, I mean, literally announcing that there is now a French-Russian coalition, with Germany agreeing, and I would say almost all of Western Europe on board, and with a poll in the Figaro,
sounds like Walter Cronkite,
that when asked, and some rather conservative readers,
this is Walter Cronkite.
Do you favor a full coalition with Russia against terrorism? 87% said yes, and these are French conservatives. Finally, there's one thing we all forget, and it was another disservice of the Clinton administration, and to a certain extent of Bush in his electoral campaign for re-election, that with the end of the Soviet Union, the nuclear threat ended. And we were told all the time the danger of nuclear war had ended with the Soviet Union. The reality is it grew, whether by intent, whether by accident, whether by theft of nuclear materials, it got worse. Last year, in an unwise peak of anger of all the legislation we passed, Russia withdrew from the Nunn-Lugar bill, which you might remember, which was one of the wisest pieces of congressional legislation. We gave Russia money just to lock down and secure all their weapons and materials of mass destruction, plus pay their scientists who knew how to do this stuff and might go to Syria or Yemen or wherever, or the Caucasus, and sell their knowledge to employ them. Russia withdrew, but Russia said it wants to renegotiate this on different terms. The White House has refused. I mean, lordy, after Paris, one hopes Obama picked up whether his cell phone or whatever they let him use to talk to Putin and said, I'm sending somebody over, let's get this done. Unfortunately, in today's paper, the lead news seems to be that what they're thinking about in the White House and in the State Department is how to counter Russian actions in Syria. They're worried, and this is what is reported, that Russia is diminishing American leadership in the world. And here's the bottom line. We don't lead in the world anymore, and we can't. Long before this, globalization, all sorts of developments, they're slow, they're bumper stickers, but the unipolar, monopolar world is over. There's a multipolar
Feel free to smoke along
emerging before our eyes, not just Russia.
And learn something.
But in 5 or 6 capitals. And Washington's stubborn resistance to embrace this has become part of the problem, not the solution. And that's where we are today, after Paris.
Our thanks to Professor Stephen Cohen, Emeritus Professor at New York University and Princeton University. We have many, many questions. I'm assuming you're mic'd up. You have there you go. I would use that so we can all hear you. Testing.
I went to an event last night where the guy participated for 40 minutes and it was only then he realized he didn't have a mic.
Let me go 8 minutes in.
By the way, emeritus means on Medicare. 20 years, because if they said, yes, we're in a new Cold War, they have to explain what they were doing during this time. So they say, oh, it's not a Cold War. Okay. It's a really horrible situation and exceedingly dangerous. And here's my next point. This new Cold War has all the potential to be even more dangerous than the preceding 40-year Cold War for several reasons. First of all, think about it. Those of us in this room of that generation, and we seem to be in the majority, know that the epicenter of that Cold War was in Berlin, not close to Russia. And there was an enormous buffer zone between Russia and the West in these satellite or bloc countries in Eastern Europe. Today, the epicenter is literally on Russia's borders in Ukraine. It's Ukraine that set this off. And Ukraine remains the ticking time bomb politically. And this is not only on Russia's borders, this is through the heart of Russia's and Ukrainians' Slavic civilization. This is a civil war even more profound in its ethos than was the American Civil War.
Listen. This is exactly what Google does not want you to hear right now. This is exactly the information that Twitter and Facebook and all of them are working to subvert. This guy is an expert in Russian relations from Princeton University. This is the kind of stuff that you're not supposed to be listening to. Listen to
These
it.
are people who were raised in the same faith, speak the same language, are intermarried. Didn't even know how many intermarried Russian and Ukrainians there are today. My wife, Katrina Vanden Heuvel, to paraphrase John Kennedy, I accompanied Katrina Vanden Heuvel to San Francisco. You'll remember John Kennedy's famous remark about his wife, or you won't. But this is profound division. And this issue, for all the terrorism, continues to be the ticking time bomb that can do a lot more damage. So but the fact that it's right on Russia's border and in, so to speak, the Russian-Ukrainian soul, at least half of Ukrainian soul, the other half yearns for Western Europe, fair enough, makes it even more dangerous. Still worse, you'll remember that after the Cuban Missile Crisis, Moscow and Washington developed certain rules of mutual conduct. They saw how dangerous, how close we came to nuclear war. So no-nos, whether they were encoded in treaties or unofficial understandings between Soviet and American leaders, you don't do this. Each side knew where the red line was. Now, we tripped over occasionally, but we immediately pulled back because there was a mutual understanding that there are red lines. There are no red lines today. One of the things that Putin and his predecessor Medvedev keep saying to Washington, you're crossing our red lines. And Washington says there are no red lines. You don't have any red lines. We have red lines. I mean, you can't have a military base in Canada or Mexico, but we can have all we want around your borders. Red lines don't exist. So there are no rules. And stop and think. In recent years, there have been 3 proxy wars between the United States and Russia already. Georgia in 2008, Ukraine beginning in 2014, and until Paris, and maybe still in Syria, because we don't know what position Washington's going to take on Syria. Hollande made his decision. He declared a grand alliance with Russia. Washington, as they say in Russia, is silent, or worse. But we're waiting to see if this new proxy Cold War goes on, and there are no rules in any of these 3 areas.
Just as long as they can continue
Moreover, and
the
I
war.
feel this, because I remember I'm old enough to remember the 70s and 80s. There is absolutely no effective organized anti-Cold War, pro-détente political force in the United States at all. Not in either political party, not in the White House, not in the State Department, not in the mass media, not in the universities, not in the think tanks. I see Sharon Tennyson, who's here, nodding her head yes, because we remember when we had allies, even in the White House, among aides of the presidents, where we had allies in the State Department, and we had senators and members of Congress who were pro-détente and supported us.
Did anybody notice this right here?
Spoke for themselves and gave us opportunities. Doesn't exist today. And without that in a democracy, what do? We don't throw bombs. We argue. So this is exceedingly dangerous.
Exceedingly dangerous.
My 4th point is a question to you. Who's responsible for this new Cold War? I don't ask this question because I want to say
It's not a Cold War anymore.
Let's name names, since they've probably been here. Gary Kasparov and Michael Fall should repent. And they say Stephen Cohen should be shot. I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in a change of policy, which can only come from the White House. Congress could help. But we need to know what went wrong and why, or we're not going to have any rethinking and we're not going to have any new policy. And at the moment, there's no rethinking in the United States. There's a lot in the European Parliament. There's a lot of angst in the French press today about this question, and in Germany, and in the Netherlands.
People want to talk about a pandemic. What about a war that the experts knew were coming? A war that these guys knew was unavoidable if we continued on the path that we were on. And this guy in 2015 was saying, "Hey man, this is really bad, and we're enticing, we're just laying the groundwork for Putin to take over Ukraine." This guy totally predicted this shit.
And even Cameron is rethinking. Suddenly wants his picture taken with Putin. Thinks it might help him at home. Now, the position of the American political media establishment is that this new Cold War is all Putin's fault. All of it. Everything. We did nothing wrong. At every stage, we were virtuous and wise, and he was aggressive. And a bad man. And therefore, what's to rethink? He's got to do the rethinking, not us. I disagree. And this is what's brought the opprobrium down on me. Of saying, because I was raised like this down in Kentucky, it's a silly adage, but it's probably true. There are two sides to every story. And these people are actually telling us no to this story, the history of American-Russian relations, only one side. No need to see anything through the other person's eyes. Just get out there and be a cheerleader for our side of the story.
Rah,
and
rah,
I don't want to make
wave
too
the
fine
flag.
a connection here, but you keep doing that and you're going to have a lot of Parises.
Where's my friend Adam at right now?
Including here in the United States. And that's why I
take
say
it from me, man. Take it from this guy. Take it from the expert.
For whatever reasons, the Clinton administration adopted in the 1990s a winner-take-all policy toward Russia. They said, we won the Cold War. That isn't true. Get Jack Matlock out here and he'll tell you the inside story. He was at Reagan's side when he negotiated with Gorbachev at every step. You can look it up, as Casey Stengel used to say. The reality is the Clinton administration adopted unwise policies, winner-take-all. And what were the consequences of these policies? Well, they were a lot. They blew the chance for strategic partnership. But the four policies that most offended Russia and offend them today were the following. Obviously, the decision to expand NATO right to Russia's borders.
Boom.
I mean, it's a joke. We say Putin has violated the post-Cold War order of Europe. Russia was excluded from the post-Cold War order of Europe by NATO expansion. Russia was pushed somewhere out there. And Russia kept saying, hey, let's do a pan-European security arrangement, like Gorbachev and Reagan said. And we said, this is not military. This is about democracy and free trade. It's going to be grateful.
What's that, Mom? Banging? Maybe it's coming from this guy bumping the podium when he's talking. Oh, maybe it's just he's popping the microphone that he's talking into.
Swallow your poison with a smile.
Yeah.
And while they had no choice, they did. And then when they had a choice not, they start pushing back. As any leader of Russia would who was sober and had support in his own country.
Listen.
I don't say that as a joke. He
Do
was
a bong rip.
by the end, look at the pictures. Yeltsin could barely walk.
Cheers.
He was pushed out. He didn't resign voluntarily. But the point of it is anybody could have predicted this back in the 1990s, and some of us did. Secondly, there's the absolute refusal on the part of the United States to negotiate on missile defense. Missile defense is now a NATO project. That means missile defense, building installations, whether it's on land or sea is more dangerous, whether land or sea, is now part of NATO expansion and encirclement of Russia. It's part of the same system. Russians are absolutely convinced it's targeted at their nuclear retaliatory capability. We say, oh, no, it's about Iran. It's not about you. But go talk to Ted Postal at MIT. Stage 4 missile defense is an offensive weapon. It also violates the INF agreement because it can fire cruise missiles. Why we're blaming the Russians for developing cruise missiles again, as they are. because we're back in this tit for tat, mutual buildup, arms race. Thirdly, this meddling in Russia's internal affairs in the name of democracy promotion. They've been doing this since the 90s. Are you aware that when Medvedev was president of Russia and Mrs. Clinton and Michael McFaul had their wondrous reset, which was a rigged roulette game, if you look at the terms of it, that Vice President Biden went to Moscow University and said, Putin should not return to the presidency, and then said that directly to Putin's face? So Putin comes over here next week and tells Rubio he thinks he ought to drop out. And we say, well, okay. I mean, are there any red lines left anymore when it comes to Russia? Do we have the right to be
And that's who our current president is. I tell you what, that right there, it's like it's 1730. And he literally says it was Joe Biden. This is before, you guys, this is before Joe Biden was president of the United States. Understand how enlightened all of you should feel after listening to this man speak from 2015. This guy does not have a narrative. He's not speaking on behalf of anyone there. He's just telling you guys what's happened since 2015. It's the exact same stuff that I've been telling you.
We've been doing this since the 90s. Are you aware that when Medvedev was president of Russia and Mrs. Clinton and Michael McFaul had their wondrous reset, which was a rigged roulette game, if you look at the terms of it, that Vice President Biden went to Moscow University and said, Putin should not return to the presidency, and then said that directly to Putin's face?
To his face. Now that's our president.
So Putin comes over here next week and tells Rubio he thinks he ought to drop out.
That's who we wanted to be president of the United States, the guy that spoke to Putin that way. It's perfect. It's perfect.
And we say, well, okay. I mean, are there any red lines left anymore when it comes to Russia? Do we have the right to be telling them? I mean, it extends to every issue, but it certainly extends to politics. And the White House simply can't keep its mouth shut. And it's egged on by vested lobbies. We all believe in democracy, but you're not going to impose democracy on Russia. And if it is, you won't like the democracy you get there. So, ask yourself two questions. Is there a Russian side of this story that needs to be considered in the aftermath of Paris, at least? And does Russia have any legitimate national interests at all in the world? And if so, what are they? On their borders? Do they have a legitimate national interest in Syria? Israel thinks so. The Israeli security people and leadership urged Putin to do what he did long before Paris. We need to think this through. My final point is one of, I would say, kind of sappy, prescriptive hope. Because until Paris happened, I wasn't sure there was any hope at all. There's still a chance to achieve this lost partnership with Russia, at least in three realms. First of all, Ukraine. You all know what the Minsk Accords are. They were drafted by Merkel and by Hollande. They were signed by Poroshenko, the president of Ukraine, and by Putin, and they call for a negotiated end to the civil war in Ukraine. They recognize that it is primarily a civil war, not primarily, but secondarily, Russian aggression. But the civil war has to be ended, and it's steps. Here's what you got to do. And I don't care what the American media tells you, it's Kiev that has refused to follow through on its obligations. But this is a possibility. To end that civil war or mute it down would be exceedingly security building today. Then there's Syria. I thought that until Paris, there was almost no chance of an American coalition with Russia and Syria. Partly to do, I think, with, and I'm not big on psychological analysis, but with Obama's mind fix about Putin. He resents him in ways that are not helpful. But since Paris, with Hollande announcing, I mean, literally announcing that there is now a French-Russian coalition, with Germany agreeing, and I would say almost all of Western Europe on board, and with a poll in Le Figaro sent to me just this morning that when asked, and some rather conservative readership of Le Figaro, Do you favor a full coalition with Russia against terrorism? 87% said yes. And these are French conservatives. Finally, there's one thing we all forget, and it was another disservice of the Clinton administration, and to a certain extent of Bush in his electoral campaign.
We already saw this.
That with the end of the Soviet Union, the nuclear threat ended. And we were told all the time the danger of nuclear war had ended with the Soviet Union. The reality.
So I think what you get out of this discussion is exactly what Google doesn't want you to hear. And this was stated in 2015. This was before Donald Trump was president of the United States, guys. He's talking about a war going on that wasn't being reported on.
So thank you so much, and welcome to Professor Stephen Cohen.
They say that the farther you go from home, the better introductions you get. I would say the farther you go from Washington and the internet and the mainstream media, the better introductions you get. Some of you probably know that the small group of us who have been protesting American policy toward Russia since the Ukrainian crisis began 2 years ago have been described in harsh and I would say derogatory language as Putin's apologists and Putin's useful idiots, Putin's Americans.
Sound familiar? Like what happened at Lee Camp?
Paris should have changed everything, but for these people it hasn't. I clicked on the internet this morning just before I came here and there it was again. So let me begin with a word about myself. My answer to these charges is no, I, not you, am the patriot of American national security. And I actually have been ever since I started studying Russia, which is about 50 years ago. I started out in Kentucky. I ended up in Indiana with my dear friend Ralph Cohen, whom I haven't seen in quite a while, but who lives here in San Francisco and is here today, and a colleague I studied with, Professor Barry Schultz. So they could testify I was doing this many, many years ago. Along the way, I came to a conviction. Exactly why and how doesn't matter. That American national security runs through Moscow. This was true when the Soviet Union existed. This is true today. What it means, in plain terms, is that whichever existential or grave world threat you might emphasize, and for some people it's climate change, for some people it's human rights, for some people it's the spread of democracy. For me, it has been for quite a while the new kind of terrorism that afflicts the world. It's no longer these so-called non-state actors. These guys are organized. They have an army. They have a self-professed state. They have a capacity to harm us gravely. Everybody seems to have forgotten 9/11 in Boston, but Paris should have reminded us of what's at stake. So for me, the threat in the world today that gets the priority, and I mean it gets the priority of the President of the United States, I don't care whether he's a Republican or a Democrat, is the combination of this new kind of terrorism, these civil wars, ethnic, religious, zealous civil wars, which drive this terrorism, and the fact that these guys desperately want materials of weapons of mass destruction. A cup this size of radioactive material aboard those planes on 9/11 would have made lower Manhattan inhabitable even today. They're using conventional weapons, bombs, mortars, and guns. But if they'd had it in Paris, Paris would have had to have been evacuated. This is the real threat today. This kind of threat cannot be even marginally diminished. And I'm not sure we can ever end it in our lifetime. This may be the new normal, but diminished and made, probably not the right word, manageable, unless we have a partner in the Kremlin. That's the long and the short of it. Note, I didn't say a friend. Clinton and Nixon went on about their dear friend Brezhnev and their dear friend Yeltsin. It was all for show. I don't care whether we like this person or not. What we need are these common interests and a partnership. the way two business people make a contract. They've got the same interest. They trust each other because if one side violates the interest, the other guy's interest is violated. We haven't had that. We don't have it today, even after Paris. But that is essentially what I've been saying for 2 years. And in return, people say that's unpatriotic. And I argue, no, it's the highest form of patriotism in regard to American national security. So I will make a few points today, very briefly, very starkly, and rather than give a lecture, which actually a lecture for me means 55 minutes. I can't do a minute more, a minute less. That this is for discussion, and I'm really less interested in lecturing than hearing what's on the mind of my old friend Gloria. We started out together many years ago. I'm more years ago than her, but in the same geographical location and on your minds. The chance for a durable Washington-Moscow strategic partnership was lost in the 1990s after the Soviet Union ended. Actually, it was lost earlier because it was Reagan and Gorbachev who gave us the opportunity. But it certainly ended in the Clinton administration. And it didn't end in Moscow, it ended in Washington. It was squandered and lost in Washington. And it was lost so badly that today, for at least 2 years, and I would argue since the Georgian War of 2008, we have been in literally a Cold War with Russia. Now, people don't want to call it that, who made American policy during the last 20 years, because if they said, yes, we're in a new Cold War, they have to explain what they were doing during this time. So they say, oh, it's not a Cold War. Okay. It's a really horrible situation and exceedingly dangerous. And here's my next point. This new Cold War has all the potential to be even more dangerous than the preceding 40-year Cold War for several reasons. First of all, think about it. Those of us in this room of that generation, and we seem to be a majority, know that the epicenter of that Cold War was in Berlin, not close to Russia. And there was an enormous buffer zone between Russia and the West in these satellite or bloc countries in Eastern Europe. Today, the epicenter is literally on Russia's borders in Ukraine. It's Ukraine that set this off. And Ukraine remains the ticking time bomb politically. And this is not only on Russia's borders, this is through the heart of Russia's and Ukrainians' Slavic civilization. This is a civil war even more profound in its ethos than was the American Civil War. These are people who were raised in the same faith, speak the same language, are intermarried. Didn't even know how many intermarried Russian and Ukrainians there are today. My wife, Katrina vanden Heuvel, to paraphrase John Kennedy, I accompanied Katrina vanden Heuvel to San Francisco. You'll remember John Kennedy's famous remark about his wife, or you won't. But this is profound division. And this issue, for all the terrorism, continues to be the ticking time bomb that can do a lot more damage. So but the fact that it's right on Russia's border and in, so to speak, the Russian-Ukrainian soul, at least half of Ukrainian soul, the other half yearns for Western Europe, fair enough, makes it even more dangerous. Still worse, you'll remember that after the Cuban Missile Crisis, Moscow and Washington developed certain rules of mutual conduct. They saw how dangerous, how close we came to nuclear war. So
there you go. You know, I think it's important that you guys understand this, that this was back in 2015, you know? Damn tight. From 2015, man. Oh. Oh. Artie says, Nate, did I get blocked? Somebody, oh yeah, I retweeted it. I'm on Twitter. You guys have put that video up. You guys, please like it, share it, retweet it, post it everywhere. All right, do it. It's great if you guys would do that. Here's a link to it if you want to post it around. There's a link to the video. All right, you guys, thanks for watching. Take care. I will see you on the next show. Bye, y'all.